Hello, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started on this next unit, which is Industrial Revolution versus Progressivism. So the learning targets practiced throughout this unit will be CE1, which is Analyze Continuity and Change in Eras over U.S. History from 1877 to present. HS1, Analyze a variety of historical sources and data of qualitative and quantitative nature. For learning objectives, learners, or you guys, will be able to break down and explain the parts and messages of the political cartoon. 2, learners will be able to categorize and explain why different political cartoons fall into the Progressive Era or Industrial Revolution. 3, learners will be able to apply understanding of the differences to explain change between the Industrial Revolution versus the Progressive Era. So through the use of political cartoons, you'll be able to figure out the major differences between the Industrial Revolution and then the Progressive Era. So getting into it, monopoly and monopolists are bigger, larger ideas within the Progressive Era and the Industrial Revolution. So breaking down monopoly, mono, which means one, and poly, which means many. So put those together, one and many really comes out to be one seller and multiple buyers within this case. So a monopoly is a business and factory owners and monopolists that own the entirety of an industry and large amounts of wealth. So this is John D. Rockefeller, the Standard Oil Company, which we'll get into here in just a minute. And it's the power that comes with the sole ownership. So some examples of this would be Apple and Apple products. There's the Apple iPhone, there's the Apple headphones, there's the Apple Watch. They own a variety of products, and it's one big company with multiple and many buyers. Monopoly, think of the Monopoly board game and the control that you're trying to gain with the money and the game itself. Another one that comes to mind is Disney. Disney owns Nat Geo, Fox, multiple other companies making lots of revenue. They're kind of like the powerful person within all of this. Disney is a powerful business that owns lots of stuff that is selling it to multiple people, multiple like us who watch Disney Plus, examples like that. So as I touched on earlier, John D. Rockefeller is a monopolist. So John D. Rockefeller was the founder of the Standard Oil Company, and he became one of the world's wealthiest men and philanthropists during the Industrial Revolution. His massive amounts of wealth with the Standard Oil Company made him a target for reform, and more specifically, reform politicians. So we'll get into this in just a minute of what reform means. It's kind of a term that may be new, but we'll get into that. But the main concept for this slide is that John D. Rockefeller was a monopolist because he owned the Standard Oil Company. Large amounts of wealth during the Industrial Revolution made him a target for reform. He owned a lot, had lots of money, which is pretty common during the Industrial Revolution. So just a little bit of backtracking here and review. Industrial, and the meaning of this is factories and large amounts of them, right? As portrayed in these pictures below, large amounts of factories, large amounts of products being made and sold. This is how John D. Rockefeller and other monopolists really got their wealth, was by using these factories to create what they were selling. And so the main concept, again, industrial means factories. So kind of put those two words together, and large amounts of them. Revolution, again, might be review. If not, revolution means significant or major change that cannot be reversed or gone back to, right? So kind of pictured here, looking before the Industrial Revolution at farming compared to going to factories. A good example I like to think of is a cobbler, which is someone who makes shoes, right? So before the Industrial Revolution, you had one person making one shoe, which took a little bit longer, and then you had one seller, one buyer. But now going to this Industrial Revolution, so again, revolution is the key word. It's something that we can't go back to. I can't imagine going back and waiting for a shoe for one person to make. Industrial Revolution really changed that process by making it possible to make multiple shoes for multiple buyers, really expanding their product. So revolution is that change that can't ever be reversed, right? We can't ever go back to making a shoe one at a time and selling it one at a time. It's changed forever. And then reform, which I touched on earlier, this is kind of a new term. So reform, the overall larger definition is making changes either politically, socially, or economically, right? So kind of like this picture, I think of like an artist reshaping or changing what they're sculpting, right? So reform really means to change, to resculpt, to redo that structure of politics, social life, economics, trying to kind of re-steering around the monopolies, restructuring, reshaping. So reform is just another word for kind of reshaping or changing politics, social life, or economics. So think of someone reshaping a clay when you think of reform. Progressivism, so the progressive era, breaking it down, progressivism, so a progressivist, which is someone who believes in progressivism, wants to change society for the better. They want progress, right? So progress is the key word within progressivism and progressivist. So someone who's a progressivist wants change in society for the better. They want progress, right? Not decline, they want progress. So I think of this picture right here, right? And progress is gain, right? So progressivism and progressivist is changing society for the better, for progress, moving forward, right? Reform, reshaping. So progressivism and progress put together is a change for the better. So to kind of show you guys a little bit of an example here, feel free to pause this video anytime if you need to rewatch something. We're going to move into legislation and the power of business. So these two kind of go hand in hand when thinking about the progressivist era, legislation was that kind of key component for progressivists. So this is section 2 of the Sherman Antitrust Act. So it says every person who shall monopolize or attempt to monopolize or combine or conspire with any other person or persons to monopolize any part of the trade or commerce among the several states or with foreign nations shall be deemed guilty of a misdemeanor and, on conviction thereof, shall be punished by fines not exceeding $5,000 or by imprisonment not exceeding 1 year, or by both said punishments in the discretion of the court. So that was a lot. We're going to go ahead and break this down a little bit to make it stick with you a little bit more. I'm going to actually go ahead and do that with you guys so we can kind of do it together. So if I back out of here, we're going to go ahead and highlight, bracket, and break down what this means. So every person who shall monopolize, right? This is a key term, monopolize. We talked about monopolies, one with mono, poly meaning many. So monopolizing is that whole idea of business, large businesses, owning lots of money, lots of revenue. So any person who shall attempt that or does that, combine or conspire with any other person or persons to monopolize. So if they're conspiring with another person or combining with another company to do this, of the trade or commerce means money, among the several states or with foreign nations, so within the United States or with foreign nations, shall be deemed guilty of a misdemeanor, right? Misdemeanor means crime. So if you're guilty of monopolizing or attempting to monopolize, you're guilty of a crime. So this is the Sherman Antitrust is reforming the idea of monopolies, right? We're changing this. We're kind of getting rid of this. This is now a crime. This is really what the main message of this is getting in, breaking down this text, this source of the Sherman Antitrust Act, which is really steering away from monopolies, steering away from the Industrial Revolution, more of a progressivist thought. And that's where we're going to go ahead and end for now. Please go on to the next video talking about breaking down a political cartoon.